Hello, good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining me today on our webinar all about culture and culture in organizations, how it drives retention, productivity, results. What does it mean? How do you improve it? How do you measure it? And how does it interact with things like engagement and then especially employee recognition? I'm Gary Purcell. I'm the founder and CEO of Amplify. And just very quickly about us, we help companies to engage and energize people through reward and recognition. That's what we specialize in. And so we deal a lot with companies who are looking to work on culture, values, improve engagement, all through employee recognition and rewards. So we've got a little bit of experience, I guess, in this area, and I'm delighted you've joined me today. And we'll have a very quick discussion about this. And if you've got any questions at all as we go through, please just pop them in the LinkedIn chat, and I'll be happy to answer them. Or alternatively, DM me on LinkedIn anytime or afterwards if you want any more information on anything we're going to discuss today. So, without further ado, company culture. What is it anyway? Well, there's lots of definitions out there for what culture is, and it's one of those things that everybody has a good understanding of, an intuitive understanding of what it is, without maybe being able to fully define or explain it. So I've put together this definition, which I think sums it all up. It's culture in a company is it's the daily lived experience of employees. And by the way, we're coming at this culture question from the employee point of view, from the HR point of view, not from the company or from other point of view. So how does it look? How does it feel for employees and for HR in particular, which is what we're delivering today. So it's a lived experience of employees in their interactions with colleagues, managers, leaders, and customers, and colored by the history and industry of the company itself. So there's a bit of heritage there. There's a lot about people there. There's what is the company's trying to achieve and how it's trying to go about it, and what surrounds the employee in their dealings with the company and with other people as the goals of the company are trying to be furthered. So it includes things like shared values and beliefs, organizational vision and mission. The leadership style has a bearing on what the culture is like, the workplace environment, employee behaviors and interactions, very important with all the interactions that are going on within the company to determine the culture, and company practices and procedures. So, how the company, goes about getting everybody aligned in the organization, and what are the daily methods and procedures that are in play in the company. So as you can see, it's an intersection of people and the company. And so it can't be faked, because there are aspirational company cultures out there. And there's company culture that, a leader, will want to project. But the lived experience of the employee may be different. And that's the culture that we're talking about today, because that's the one in the world of HR that makes all the difference. So, strong culture for strong results. Is having a better culture in a company good for the business results of that company? And everybody knows intuitively the answer is yes. But it's a bit fuzzy, isn't it? 94% of executives, 88% of employees highlight a distinct workplace culture as crucial for business success. But only 19% of executives and 15% of employees perceive that their organization as having a robust culture. So this is one of those things that is of importance, not easy to define it, and how do you influence it? Because it's not like a light switch turning it on and off. It's messy. It involves people. It involves interactions. It involves change. It involves an intersection of a lot of things. And so, how do you even go about looking and improving the cultural aspects of a company? Well, that's what we're going to discuss further now. And one thing I would say is that culture and engagement go hand in hand. We spend a lot of time with companies who are trying to, yeah, they have a culture, they're happy enough with it, but it's mostly over in the engagement side, trying to engage employees, not necessarily just around the culture, but around engaging employees about all of the activities, the goals, the vision that the company needs to pursue. And when you come to look at trying to improve employee engagement within an organization, it has a lot of parallels with trying to improve the company culture. So they really go hand in hand, even though they're two sides of the same biscuit. So while leaders usually have no problem developing a strategic vision, which is part of culture, corporate culture can be harder to create. So the overall culture can be harder to actually create. So we can say, there's certain things that leaders can actually put in place that are directly part of the culture, like the work environment, some policies, procedures, the vision, all of that good stuff. That can be written down or that can be put in place. It's their hard, concrete things that can be just there. But that isn't the whole culture, right? That's part of it. And so the whole corporate culture can be much, much harder to create. And that's because corporate culture is the sum of all employees' alignment and engagement with that culture. So an employee engagement is difficult. It's the number one challenge for HR. We do a HR survey every year of hundreds of senior HR professionals. And every year for the last 3 years, the number one challenge that senior HR professionals um, identified was how to improve employee engagement. And employee engagement is so important in companies and so difficult to achieve, especially in this day and age, because employee engagement is to do with being actively willing to give discretionary effort as an employee to the company to further that company's goals. Um, it's reckoned throughout the world that no more than 30% on average of employees are actively engaged in a company. And trying to turn the dial on company engagement can have huge positive business results for any company. But again, a little bit like culture, it's tricky to turn the dial on that. But nobody asks when you come into a company, or if you're in an interview, or if somebody's asking you what it's like to work in a particular place. Nobody really says, how's the engagement? How's engagement like? Or what's engagement like in your company? But they do ask, what sort of culture is there in your company? And so there's a lot of overlap between the two, and one feeds into the other. Um, and like it or not, it goes without saying that you need to have engaged workforce promoting and actively contributing to a vibrant culture and a positive culture in a company, with everybody aligned in the same way in order for the goals of that company to be achieved. By and large, you can get away with bad culture up to a certain point. You can get away with lack of engagement up to a certain point, but ultimately these are positive HR indicators that will have a big bearing on the positive outcomes that any company is trying to achieve. So let's have a look at the culture challenge then. If we're saying it's an intersection of people and the company, but it's a slippery eel. Let's have a look. Why is it so difficult? What is it about culture that can be tricky in a company to identify and to improve? Well, in lots of companies, there can be cool workspaces. There can be great vision. Um, But with a great vision, there can be a daily disconnect. So there could be a great vision for the company, but in the employee's everyday experience of going into that company, it can be like a large disconnect between what the great vision is and what the reality is when the person comes into the office or when the person logs in remotely from home. There can be great company values that people are actually supportive of and actually identify with, but in a lot of cases they can be gathering dust. They can just be something that a company put together and put up on the website, maybe included in induction, but then it's just sort of forgotten about in the daily experience of employees. Cool workspaces, great, but it's just an okay atmosphere. So just because there's a really cool workspace, and there's a trend towards that at the moment, especially in the return to the office, um, but that doesn't necessarily, just having a cool workspace on its own, which is in one sense easy to create, does not automatically translate to a great work atmosphere when you get in there. It helps, but it doesn't guarantee it. And you can have great colleagues, and we see this a lot, but perception of mediocre managers. or managers who are distracted with other things, are not aligned with their colleagues enough to be able to promote that cultural bridge that can exist. And in every company, we see this, and everybody, I think this goes without saying in this day and age, there's an information overload, but there's poor communications. So these are contradictions, right? These are things that are happening to a greater or less extent in different companies, which are all feeding into the culture, the real culture of a company, and they're detracting, if you like, from the overall cultural experience, and therefore from the overall performance of the, or the potential performance of the company through their people. So 62% of employees cite a toxic corporate culture as a reason for quitting. But toxic culture, if it does exist, you're going to notice it pretty quickly, I think, because retention is such a huge challenge in HR right now, that anything that accelerates staff turnover, especially something like a clearly dysfunctional culture, is really going to immediately become apparent, because it's immediately going to affect performance. So not every company has, or not even a large proportion of companies, I would venture to say, have a toxic culture. It's just that their culture is not as positive or as vibrant or as supportive of the business as it potentially could be. And this is a particularly bigger challenge now with all of these aspects, because of hybrid working and the fact that not everybody is in the same physical location at the same time, because culture is that intersection of people and the company. And with people not interacting as much physically, it's more difficult. It's a bigger challenge to both uh, generate the culture and to maintain a culture within a company that's distinct from every other company. So, is employee recognition the silver bullet? So, is there one thing that you can do in a company like employee recognition that's going to solve all your cultural issues? And is employee recognition that silver bullet? And I would say, no, it's not the silver bullet, but there's a lot of things that that employee recognition, or effective employee recognition, delivers, which directly addresses these challenges that are apparent in culture and in employee engagement. They directly impact it. So it's not the only thing, but if you're only going to do one thing and get one thing right, employee recognition will tick a lot of these boxes. So excuse the pun here, but employee recognition, if done right, will amplify the positive aspects of your culture. And they'll amplify the positive aspects of your culture in a way that other things don't quite do. Now, what does that mean? It means things like bringing company values to life from the bottom up. So, in most of the recognition programs that we run for clients, they're doing peer recognition of some description. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody is giving valuable rewards over and back throughout the company, because sometimes, or in many cases, managers have a budget of real monetary rewards to give out to nominate other team members for. But employees have maybe a zero budget, but can still send a simple thanks through the same system. A simple thanks being a non-monetary reward, just an appreciation that managers can then afterwards bump up and boost up. But that's a technical detail. But what it does is that for every nomination that's made, be it by a manager for monetary reward or employee for a simple thanks, you must select one of the company values, because it has to be values based. You have to get to a common way of being able to recognize behavior that you want to reward or recognize other people for. And that tends to be company values. So the company values suddenly come alive. If I want to send a simple thanks, or if I want to send a monetary reward to my colleague, in the team next door, then I need to select a company value when I'm nominating them. And I need to write a short explanation, a short description about why I'm nominating that person. That's standard. And so what it does is, every day there are tens, or if not hundreds, of nominations being made, and every single one of those has a company value attached to it, which is directly feeds into the culture of the company. So now you're bringing the company values to life. The values that people might have identified with when they first joined the company, but then they were gathering dust on the shelf because nobody ever really brought them out again. Now the values that are on your website are being lived every day because people are identifying and recognizing people for working to those values during the daily life. It energizes and aligns employees. So this is the power of appreciation. I won't get into it too much with all the dopamine hits that are the result of somebody thanking someone else in a genuine way. It does energize people because, yeah, sure, everybody likes a reward at the end of the year, but equally, people like to be recognized, just thanked, just simply thanked for good work. And so by simply thanking people for good work, you're aligning people with not just with the company values, but also with a particular set of behaviors, which is very positive for the culture of the company and very positive for the productivity and the business results in that company. And the person who has the most power in this area, but is often the most neglected, are the middle managers. So what we find quite a lot is that middle managers have a set of, of a very, very busy set of tasks to accomplish every day, one of which is to, motivate employees. But the reality is very often middle managers just simply don't have the time to give to people because they're trying to juggle so many plates. And so what an effective employee recognition system can do is it can turn middle managers into cultural ambassadors because now you're made their life really easy for them to say thank you for a particular thing, or to recognize or to see somebody else being nominated and interact with them through social recognition or through a boost of their reward, or simply know when somebody is celebrating a birthday or a service milestone and have that information there in real time so that they can go and add their acknowledgement to it. And that is tremendously important because from an employee's perspective, the most impactful type of recognition you can receive is actually from your direct line manager. It's more powerful than from the CEO, more powerful from the manager's manager. So even more powerful than getting a recognition from the senior leadership in a company. More powerful than that is just getting thanked from your direct manager, who's the one who's closest to you in the organization. And so recognition can turn middle managers from overloaded task managers into cultural ambassadors because it makes their life easier. It makes it easier for them to do that. It's communication with cut through. So sometimes we come across new clients and we're launching a new recognition program for them, and we tell them that, oh, you can download the app on your phone, the Amplify app, and you can have recognition on the go. And one of their concerns is, well, we got so many systems in our company, we don't want any more systems. There's, we got communication with chat and with email, and we got all this stuff. We don't want any more. It's too much, and that is a legitimate issue in today's world. We've got so much information being spread across the the organization. However, not all of that communication is either necessary or positive or is directly impacting the receiver or the culture of the company in the way communication from a recognition system will. And what I mean by that is every time you get recognized on an employee recognition program, you'll get an email or maybe a notification on the app. And 99 times out of 100, you'll want to read that. It's human nature. You don't want to have someone send you a positive message because it's not that they're sending you a message. You've got 10 notifications. Oh, I don't know what, I don't want to get into my emails now. This is somebody saying something positive to thank you or to appreciate you or to recognize something that you've done. And as all humans, we want to know what that is, and we want to know the details of that, and we want to see who sent it and why they sent it and what they said about us. So this is communication with cut through. This is the one piece of communication. If I don't open my emails, if I'm on holidays, I don't want to read any emails while I'm away. If somebody sends me a reward through a recognition program, well, I think I'll make an exception and just read what that's about. And it's loyalty that's celebrated. So like we said earlier, retention is such a huge issue at the moment because of the skills shortage, um, because of all the other macroeconomic issues that are out there at the minute. Loyalty should be really valued, because the best way to ensure retention is just to recognize people who are staying longer in the company, and celebrate those people and celebrate their milestones. And very often, and I'm surprised at this, organizations get this basic task wrong. They have great plans about it, but the whatever the process is that they put in place is too complicated. People are not always in the office, so they miss whatever it was that was planned, and it becomes a demotivator for some people. It becomes unevenly implemented, and it becomes something that, instead of being a celebration and something that positively contributes to the culture, actually becomes a drain on the culture as well. So service awards, so important to get that right. So easy to get it right by just having the right system in place, and not making it overcomplicated, and producing that great communication that feeds in so well into making sure that the culture is right, and making sure that one of the main challenges to do with HR and employee engagement is being done. And rewards that resonate. So most of the recognition programs we do end up with some sort of reward, be it points that you build up and then you can cash them in and spend them. But by having rewards in a recognition program, what it's signaling is that the company is willing to put some value onto recognition. It's putting value onto this initiative to improve engagement, uh, recognize the company values being lived in their daily life, recognize and celebrate longevity in the company and achievement in the company. And by putting small rewards or a budget towards that, so people can build up their rewards through all of this great work and get recognized for it and then rewarded for it, um, underlines how important this is to the company and feeds directly back into the culture of the company as well. So very important. So all of those things feed into a better culture, which should feed into a bottom line. And I won't bore you with the details, but the bottom line is effective employee recognition delivers business gains of €10,000, £8,600 per employee per year. And how it does that, and that's overall from lots and lots, hundreds of different studies across thousands of companies and hundreds of thousands of employees. When recognition is done right, this is what it delivers. Um, a reduction in employee staff turnover of roughly 30%. So companies with effective recognition programs have 31% lower turnover. You can DM me afterwards. I can send you all of the sources and backups and all of the research that's been done to show these figures. This is not just me saying this. This is from years of research. So it's different for different companies. We're talking about averages here, but on average, you can improve your staff turnover by 30% by having an effective recognition program in place. 92% of employees who work with an integrated recognition program say they're 5 times more likely to stay for the next 3 years, and 7 to 10 recognition moments per year, half the chances of employees voluntarily leaving. So 7 to 10 recognition moments per year. That's less than one per month. Right? If you can get middle managers or direct managers to say thank you in an effective way at least once a month, you will halve the chances of staff leaving. It isn't going to stop everybody from leaving, but it's going to halve the chances. It's going to keep people more engaged and more motivated for longer in your company. Productivity. So 9% boost in productivity through effective recognition. So if you double the amount of recognition in your company, you'll average produce a 9% improvement in productivity. Now, this is done through decreasing absenteeism, because that's a really good indicator of employee engagement. And one of the main benefits of employee recognition is increased employee engagement. And from studies we've done ourselves, praise and recognition is the biggest motivator for employees after pay. So, okay, you need to be paying people, but praise and recognition has a huge bearing on how employees perceive how motivated they are within an organization, believe it or not. 90% engagement on our programs. 9 out of 10 employees, and this is goes from companies from 100 employees, 100 staff, which is sort of the minimum size company that we run programs for, up to 5,000 staff, which is average of the larger companies. 9 out of 10, regardless of whether they've 100 or 5,000 staff, 9 out of 10 employees will participate actively in our recognition system over the course of a year. And that's not just in the first year when it's new and exciting, it's in year 5, 6, 7, 8, because it is such it becomes such an important driver and maintainer of the culture in a company as well. And it's something that employees really do like engaging with. And it is something that does turn the dial in terms of the culture in the company. Employees that are recognized twice in each quarter feel significantly more appreciated, and as a result are significantly more engaged. And a 5-point increase in employee engagement levels correlates to 3% increase in corporate revenue. So there's a direct connection between having employees who are on average more engaged with the business results at the end of the day. And the topic we're talking about today, culture, 85% improvement in work culture. So we interview we do surveys on all of our employees on our programs every year, 85% of whom say having the recognition system in place improves the work culture. So there's very little else out there that is going to improve work culture as much as having an effective, a well-run and well-resourced employee recognition program. Employees that are 5 times less likely to feel connected employees are 5 times as likely to feel connected to their culture when recognition is done effectively. And highly integrated recognition increases the odds of a thriving culture by 600%. So, like I said, these are studies that have been done over many years. DM me if you'd like to know more about any of the statistics presented here. And also, if you want to know any more about how this recognition system can influence these particular aspects of what we're talking about today, which is cultural culture in a company. So if you use a recognition system, you sort of get this out of the box. But if you're just interested in recognition as a concept that should be implemented in your company without investing in an employee recognition program or a system, these are the 4 things you need to do to make sure that your recognition is effective and actually drives the cultural and engagement benefits that we've spoken about already. So the first thing is that it needs to be timely. You need to recognize people for the behavior and achievements that they're exhibiting at or around the time that they're actually doing those behaviors or having those achievements, because it's no point at the end of the year in looking back and saying thanks or well done to somebody who did something 6 or 8 months previously. It loses all of its effectiveness. And so real-time appreciation is really important. If you see something, it should be recognized right there and that's why we are constantly preaching the benefits of little and often micro rewards, micro recognition every day. If you see something that's been done that supports the company values and the company goals, that should be recognized just in a small way, but it adds up over time. The recognition needs to be genuine, and we all have horror stories, I'm sure, of rewards and sort of recognition that have gone south because they didn't seem like it was genuine at all, that it sort of came from the heart. Whether it's like wilted flowers on your desk after you come home from a holiday or extended time out of the office, to a message that seems like it was copied and pasted to everybody in the team, to a token reward that really does not push your buttons. And I'm thinking of the carriage clock scenario from the olden days, but the updated versions of that, something that just does not seem genuine. Equitable, so it needs to be seen as being fair to everybody. It needs to be not just favoritism, like we've recognized this person over here for doing that, but we've got to do this person over here for doing this. In that team, they always get recognized. In this team, they don't. The night shift are always forgotten about. It's only the people who are closest to the managers when they're in during the day. All of these are things that challenges, I guess, in the employee recognition space that really detract from the overall effectiveness of the program. And the last one is that personal. It needs to be personal as well, and that's challenge because the best way to say thanks to someone is probably face to face, but that's just not an option in today's working environment where there's remote working, where there's shift working, where there's multi-site working, where there's mobile working. And so to make it equitable and personal at the same time, you need some sort of system, and it's okay to digitize it as long as it's personal. As long as if I get recognized, it isn't a an impersonal message or an impersonal thank you, which doesn't mean anything. It needs to be something that's specific to me and specific to something that I have done or I have achieved. So getting those four things right makes recognition effective as a concept. And a recognition platform will sort of do that for you. But if you don't use that, just make sure to as large an extent as possible that your recognition and your rewards hit these 4 points. So just very quickly then, we offer a recognition hub, which is a platform. It's a points-based platform for engaging employees, improving culture, and delivering results all in one place. It's a desktop application and it's a mobile phone application, and it allows any company to, or us, I should say, to tailor any recognition program from the full menu of all the different types of recognition you can run for employees. We can tailor that and configure that specifically for each company. So it could be peer recognition, manager awards, on the spot service awards, employee of the month, referral schemes, performance, perfect attendance, training, safety, you can have birthday rewards, ad hoc rewards, you name it, whatever it is that you historically have done or you are interested in having as part of your recognition program, and having it within the budget that you want to spend, that can be done and configured up on a system very, very easily. We spoke about recognition being timely. Well, the best way to make recognition timely is to automate it. And so for things like service awards, birthday rewards, and ad hoc rewards, you can actually have it so that they're timed, so that you hit your 5-year milestone, and that milestone is something that the company wants to recognize. On the morning that you achieve your 5 years in the company, you'll get a personal email with a message from the company, and your line manager will get an email as well notifying them, and your shout out will appear on the timeline. When people log in, they can see that you've achieved your service award, and all that'll happen automatically, and it's guaranteed to happen on the day it should without any delay. Same with birthday awards and ad hoc rewards. Any rewards that you want to give offline, HR can just upload and give straight away by email. Social recognition then is really, really great at improving engagement. So not only this is an optional feature, but more and more companies are introducing this now. So not only do you give a reward to somebody, but you publish that reward as a shout out on the platform itself, on the timeline when people log in, and then everyone else in the company can see that, or they can see and like and comment on it depending on what you allow. And managers can even boost your reward, so add in another reward and boost it up in value for the employee as well, if it's something that's really exceptional. And this makes employee recognition, so much more proactive, so much more alive, so much more engaging, and so much more effective in the end of the day, while all the time supporting, like we said before, the culture and aims of the company. And then in the back end, companies like to make sure that they know what's happening with their program, that they can run the analytics, that they can ensure financial controls and budgeting and compliance with any tax returns that need to be done. So all of that is taken care of as well. And there's proven results, right? So we know that 90% of employees will engage with the system every year. We know we've seen 22% increase employee satisfaction to do with recognition scores. And there's a 28 times return on investment for investing in the system like this. And that's over many clients over many years. So that's it for today. I hope you got something out of that discussion about culture, about the challenges with culture, and about maybe the role and recognition in helping to improve and maintain and drive culture in a really positive way in today's work environment. So thanks very much for your time. And if anybody has any questions, I'll be delighted to answer them now. So Helen asks, how do you measure the return on investment on recognition? And that's a really good question. Um, Very often, the measure of recognition is through surveys, through pulse surveys, um, and to see if the employees are reporting better metrics in terms of being recognized, feeling recognized. But then there are hard measures as well to do with absenteeism and to do with um, staff turnover. But you need a slightly bigger company to have those stats really accurately affect the return investment on recognition. So a lot of the time you're relying on what the feedback is overall from employees to be able to gauge the recognition. But then you should be able to see it in terms of engagement with the program, in terms of positive feedback on pulse surveys, and ultimately in terms of productivity measures and turnover of staff measures that can be linked to the program. How often should employees be recognized to see a real impact? Well, studies have shown that you should be recognized 7 to 10 times per year. Um, but in reality, as a rule of thumb, we would say, sort of once a month. But that's also not really accurate either, because you should be recognized as often as not when you've done something to deserve it, if that makes sense. So it's important that to make sure that the recognition is genuine and valued, that you're getting recognized in a timely way whenever it's deserved and it's not being missed. I think they're the most important things. But certainly, it isn't a case of getting one piece of one thank you per year. That isn't going to cut it. You don't need to be thanked every day. You don't even need to be thanked every week. But in general, rhythm would be like once every few weeks, once every month. If you've done something to deserve it, that should be called out. What's the best way to keep remote staff feeling connected to culture? Yeah, that's a very topical question, isn't it, at the moment? And the very fact that you have remote workers impacts on the culture, right? The very, that actually changes the culture inevitably, or certainly changes the way that culture develops. And it like a number of things to do with management and HR, it makes the task of keeping the culture levels high, or keeping it improved, it makes it more difficult. It just makes it more difficult. So a lot of the things that you could take for granted when everybody was in the company, in the one location, I mean, is just made more difficult. So how do you keep it high? Well, the first thing I would say is you get an employee recognition program that's digital, so that everybody can equally participate in it regardless of where they are. That's number one. And then all the other things you think of that a company does for culture, and it's to do with work environment, it's to do with leadership, it's to do with the policies and procedures, it's to do with how people interact and the communications that go in the companies. All of those have to be sort of rethought again a little bit, because people are going to be outside the company, and not on site. So a lot more thought has to be put into all the other aspects of culture, and adapt it slightly for the fact that not everybody's going to be in the one place. Um, what are some small habits managers can build to make appreciation part of their day to day? Well, personally, what I find is that with the recognition program that we obviously run internally in this company ourselves, is that I have the app icon on the homepage of my phone. So when I'm in a commute, or when I'm stuck in an airport, or at least once a week on a Friday when I come in, I'm having a coffee, I'll go into the app, I'll see what recognition was being done. What not just what recognition. It always surprises me, even in a small company here with 20 people, how many things are happening and how many good things, tasks are being achieved without me even knowing about it. And I'm just sitting here, a matter of feet away from everybody else, although a lot of them are remote. And um, I go in and I see the good work that's been done. I comment, I interact with it as much as I can. And that really keeps me on my toes. And it makes my life easier. And without that, personally myself, I would be one of those managers that would struggle to say thanks enough to people or well done enough to people. I would just be one of those too busy people to really take the time for that. But because of the tool, it's just a lot easier. If you don't have that tool, I think you need to diarize it. I think you need to actually put it in your calendar. It needs to be in there as, right, I need to stop once, every couple of days, at least once a week, and just see who I can call out for some informal thanks of something that happened during the week, because there's always something if you stop and think about it. Okay, so I think that's all the questions. And I really appreciate those questions. Thanks a million. And thank you for joining me today on this webinar. We'll be sending out the slides. And like I said, if anybody wants any more information on anything presented today or on any aspect of employee engagement, on culture, or on our Recognition Hub product, please don't hesitate to contact me, DM me. And I hope to see you back here soon for our next event. All the best. Bye-bye.